Namaste, my friends. Welcome to Bhakti Yoga Conference, Grace in an Age of Distraction. My name is Happy Jack, the founder of Happy Jack Yoga and a Master Divinity student here at Harvard. And this is a journey, a spiritual journey, almost a spiritual marathon we've been on now for this is our 5th week. And we're bringing in different prominent voices from the Bhakti tradition. We have monks and scholars and yogis and thought leaders and musicians, scientists, therapists, entrepreneurs, people from all walks of life. And actually today we have a monk that's completely dedicated his entire life to the propagation of Bhakti and making the world a better place. So really our wish, our hope is that you gain some insight, some inspiration to support you on your spiritual journey. As of now, we got over 4,100 registrations. So thank you so much for being here with us. Many of you catching the recording. If you're here live, you have the gift of being able to ask a question. We will take Q&A at the end. So please have those questions handy. I'll spotlight our esteemed guest today while we say a few words. Please welcome to the screen Bhakti Rasamrita Swami, who is a sannyasi in the ISKCON tradition. Maharaj teaches the eternal message of Sanatan Dharma all over the world, including India, Singapore, UK, USA, Australia, and Russia. He's presently one of the trustees of ISKCON India. He's a member of the Vrindavan Executive Board, which oversees the management of ISKCON Vrindavan. He's previously served as temple president of ISKCON Chowpatty in Mumbai and also ISKCON Vrindavan. He oversees the management of ISKCON Belgaum in the Karnataka state of India, where he is inspiring and nurturing a large community of local devotees to practice Krishna consciousness. In line with the principle of simple living and high thinking, he is actively involved in the development of a self-sufficient Vedic eco-village 40 kilometers from Belgaum called Gokul Dham, spread over 450 acres of lush green forest. And I'll just say, we've been hearing a lot about Govardhan Eco-Village. This is another beautiful project, distinct near Belgaum. So apart from regularly lecturing at a wide variety of forums in India and abroad, he also guides aspirants on the practical application of Vedic wisdom in day-to-day life. And I must just say, Maharaj, it's such an honor to have you here with us. The majority of the speakers who have joined us for this virtual conference are individuals that I, personally crossed paths with these past few years on the path of bhakti. But you're an exception. This is the first time we're meeting, but yet you came so highly recommended by so many devotees that we had to extend an invitation. And actually, 2 prominent teachers on my bhakti path have been Gauranga Prabhu and Radhesham Prabhu, who both spoke at this conference. And we understand that it was actually you who helped plant the initial seeds of bhakti in their hearts. So we're so grateful to you, Maharaj, to have you here with us. And the title of today's session, I love it, it's called Krishna, the Blue Musician Who Takes Away Our Blues. My friends, if you are ready to get started with Bhakti Rasamrita Swami, throw your arms in the air and loudly chant, Hari Bol!
Hare Krishna. Happy Jack, thank you very much. And a very good morning, I suppose, since most of you are in America, or whatever part of the day it is. If you are in other places, a happy day ahead, and I'm really happy to be with all of you today. It's a pleasure to be on this Bhakti Yoga conference, and I was delighted to be of some service to this conference. It's got a series of wonderful speakers, and I'm sure you have all relished the different talks over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
The topic, as Happy Jack has said, is Krishna, the blue musician who takes away our blues. As is our custom, we begin with certain auspicious invocation prayers. So I will, for about 2 minutes, chant these prayers, and then I will begin my presentation. Om Jnana Dasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. If I may just step in for a moment, but before we begin your presentation, would you share with us what brought you to your spiritual path? What brought you to this path of bhakti, just to help connect and understand where this is all coming from?
Well, people normally expect some kind of a dramatic answer or something, some dramatic occurrence that could have happened, but it wasn't anything like that in my case. I had a friend in my class in my post-graduation, and he introduced me to this literature of bhakti and to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And although I was skeptical in the beginning, but once I started reading the books, started understanding the philosophy and met the devotees, my heart changed, and over a period of time, my convictions became more resolute. And one day, I then decided to dedicate my life for serving the cause of bhakti. And that's how I'm here today.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you. That even just a little bit what you shared there, it can be very relatable. I know I also felt skepticism and wondered, am I crazy? Is this crazy? Does this make sense? No one else in my life is doing this. So it's actually very reassuring and helpful to hear that even yourself, who has now been doing this for decades, there was that moment earlier in the path where, you had to take the time and use your discernment. So thank you for that little anecdote. And please, Maharaj, we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. My greetings once again to everyone who is participating in this evening session. I propose to have a slide presentation, and I'll speak alongside. Okay, here we go. So, I thought of this topic because I was thinking of something to speak directly about Krishna. Krishna, the all-attractive personality. Philosophy is very important, of course. However, the theology, especially as it relates to Krishna, is even more exciting because it is full of what we call in bhakti terminology rasa, or transcendental mellow. And I was thinking about this theme because we are all familiar with this word blues. It's quite common in human experience for us to go through the blues. We say, I've got the blues, or I have the blues. And it generally means that we're somewhat feeling sad or depressed, or we are low in spirit. So that's what we generally mean. It's a colloquial expression, the blues. And of course, people resort to various means to beat the blues, so to speak. And historically, we've found so many different means people have adopted. For example, in the late 19th century, the African American community in America, and they evolved this whole form or genre of music, the blues music, which essentially reflected their melancholy and their yearnings in life. And also it went beyond expressions of sadness. They expressed their joy, their resilience, and expressed many such other human emotions. So, however, today we're going to speak of another kind of music, not the kind of blues music that perhaps most people in the Western world are accustomed to speaking about. We're going to speak about a kind of music that is very familiar to followers of the Bhakti tradition, that will not only help us beat the blues, but they will also help to uplift our consciousness and come to the level of everlasting, sublime, spiritual bliss, which is indeed what all of us are seeking in life. And at the center of all, when it comes to talking about this transcendental music, transcendental means to transcend matter and go into the spiritual realm. So when we speak of this transcendental music that can take away our blues and situate us in transcendental bliss, at the very center of it all, as per the Bhakti tradition, is the original ultimate musician, Krishna, who, by the way, also happens to be God. But the interesting thing is that Krishna doesn't like to play God. Interestingly, everyone apart from God likes to be God. Those who are not God want to be God, and the one who is God says, I don't want to be God. I just want to play my flute. So God is the ultimate original musician, but he doesn't like to play God. He likes to play the flute. He likes to engage in all sorts of sporting activities with his loving devotees. And that is what the process of bhakti is all about, to revive our original constitutional relationship that we have on the spiritual platform with Krishna, the source and origin of everything. Now, generally, when we speak of God, there are so many different conceptions that people have. For example, you may have seen these pictures of God being perhaps a very strong person, very muscular. He has to be very muscular because he has to lift all the planets and keep them afloat. In the early days of our movement, the ISKCON movement, our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, had to deal with a lot of young boys and girls. They were barely in their teens, and some just entered into their adulthood. And one of them was a girl who was an artist. And Srila Prabhupada asked her to paint Krishna lifting the Govardhan hill. That's one of the celebrated pastimes of Krishna, where he stands at the age of 7, and with the little finger of his left hand, he raises a mighty mountain to protect his dear devotees, the residents of Vrindavan. And she, in her innocence presumed that if somebody has to lift a mountain, he has to be very muscular and really very big and strong. And then Srila Prabhupada laughed when he saw that, and he said, no, 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 Krishna is not like this. He doesn't need to be muscular and strong from a physical point of view. Krishna is all-powerful, but he's just a tender 15-year-old boy, or even less than that. He doesn't appear like a muscular boy. And then he corrected her and gave her the right conception, and then she painted a beautiful picture. So anyway, this is one of the conceptions that people have. Another is perhaps of God being like a patriarchal figure, a kindly elderly person with white hair who is always looking down on us kindly and blessing us. Perhaps some others visualize God as someone or something that is formless, that doesn't have any attributes, no qualities, no form. Then there are others who visualize God as some kind of punishment personified, who is there to correct the wrongdoers and punish them. And perhaps on the other hand, someone who can grant them their wishes and bless them with all the luxuries and happiness of life. So these are different conceptions, but actually in the Bhakti tradition, from the Vedic scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures, we understand that the original source of everything, the supreme absolute truth, whom we commonly call God, is not like this. He has unlimited strength, he has unlimited mercy, he has unlimited love, he has all the different qualities, but these qualities are manifest through a very sublime form and a personality like this. Now, if we show this picture to someone and say, you know, this is God, you will probably be met with an incredulous expression on the person's face, and he or she may say, well, you know, this doesn't quite look like God. I mean, where's all the power and where's all the capacity to create the universe and destroy it and run the whole show, so to speak? But that is the very unique and fascinating part of understanding Krishna as a supreme person. Krishna is a fascinating personality to study and to love. He is the reservoir of all love, the ultimate infinite reservoir of love. The love that we have been seeking in this world, life after life, in vain. True love can never be found in this world on the material platform. Srila Prabhupada explains in his teachings, and that's what the Bhakti teachings are also, that true love can be only found on the spiritual platform when we dovetail our loving propensity to Krishna, the all-loving and all-lovable Supreme Personality. Now, we might wonder about many things when we see this picture, but the first thing that probably strikes us is the complexion. Well, in our experience, we've seen people who are white complexioned. We've seen people who are black. We've seen people who are brown, maybe yellow or something like that, but we don't really see anybody who's blue in color. That's, except of course nowadays, I believe, someone mentioned to me there are some science fiction movies where they show these persons who are blue, and then when I saw some of those pictures, I realized that they had actually taken the theme from the Bhakti scriptures, because that's what the residents of the spiritual world, they look like. They're blue complexioned like Krishna is. So in any case, so it might sound a little unusual or look a little unusual, but then yes, Krishna is indeed blue in color, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. But that's not the only unusual thing about Krishna. He also has a childhood form. Now, in no conception of God in any part of the world do we generally see God depicted as a child. That's something that may seem to be really out of the ordinary and something that doesn't seem to make sense, because intuitively we can understand that a child is essentially quite helpless. A child's intelligence isn't very advanced. A child isn't endowed with physical strength or maturity or discrimination. So how can a child be God? So the interesting thing is that God is God in all situations, in all circumstances, and in all forms that he may choose to take. So when Krishna takes on the form of a child, he still remains God, and therefore the infinite power, mercy, love, and all the other unlimited attributes that he has continue to reside in him and manifest in his persona as he performs these pastimes. The activities of Krishna are called pastimes, as opposed to just the karma that we ordinary mortals do in this world. Karma is something that causes bondage. We perform karma being bound by the modes of nature, and then we are bound to suffer or enjoy the reactions thereof. But Krishna, being beyond karma, beyond matter, and indeed he is the Lord and controller of law of matter, of karma, as well as time. So Krishna can present himself in any form that he likes, and he remains in all situations the all-powerful, all-knowing, all-merciful, all-loving Supreme Personality of Godhead. So not only does Krishna appear as a child, but he engages in frolicsome antics, just like any normal child does. You know, children are up to a lot of mischief. They do things that make everybody happy and laugh. And so here we have a very peculiar, or what might seem like a peculiar phenomenon, where God becomes a thief. He steals butter. Now imagine, in most traditions, to say that God is a thief would be considered blasphemous, some kind of sacrilege or something. But here, this is one of the most sublime things, one of the things that melts the heart of the devotees when they think of God as a supreme thief. Incidentally, one who owns everything cannot be a thief. But nevertheless, this is called a pastime. And then not only does he steal, but sometimes he is scolded, he is reprimanded, and he is even punished for his mischievous acts. And his mother ties him to the grinding mortar. This is in a celebrated pastime called the Damodar Lila. So, to have a conception of God as a child who is very frolicsome, sporty, who engages in all sorts of mischievous acts like stealing butter, going to people's homes and stealing butter, is rather unusual. And of course, he remains especially charming. And apart from that, yes, he herds cows too. That's his profession. Now, someone may say, well, God has a profession? Well, if we can have a profession, why can't God have a profession? So his favorite profession is to herd cows. And he goes out with his brother, Balaram, who's white complexioned, by the way, and with his friends, the cowherd boys. And they have a very large number of cows and calves who go out to graze into the forest. And this is one of the most beautiful pastimes of Krishna, and one of the most talked about affinities that Krishna has, which is for the cows. That's why in the bhakti culture, in the Vedic culture in general, cows are considered very holy, very pristine, sublime, because they're connected to Krishna, because Krishna loves the cows, so we love the cows. It's as simple as that. So this is another extraordinary feature of Krishna as the Supreme Lord, who doesn't act as a Supreme Lord. Note that in these pastimes, it doesn't give us the impression that here is an almighty person who runs the show in the entire creation. He's just a tender-looking 10, 12, 14-year-old boy. And then, yes, even though he's a boy, in Vrindavan, which is his abode, he performs very extraordinary pastimes like killing gigantic demons. At the pastimes that we see here, Krishna is aged less than 10. But still he can kill mighty demons effortlessly because, as I mentioned, he retains his infinite strength in all the forms that he manifests. So yes, he comes down here to this earth, he kills demons. He doesn't actually need to descend here physically in order to do all these things, but he nevertheless does them in order to protect his devotees and also to give pleasure to his devotees. So the purpose for the descent or the incarnation of Krishna is primarily to protect and give happiness to his devotees. And then yes, Krishna has his gopis. Gopis are the milkmaids of Vrindavan. The cowherding ladies and girls of Vrindavan. Krishna is a cowherd and the whole village is full of cowherds. One time when I was living in Vrindavan, we had an ambassador from a European country who was visiting us, and I escorted him to the altar where we saw a deity of Krishna and Radha, who is his eternal consort. And he saw Krishna and Radha. You can see the two of them on the picture on your left. Krishna and Radha Rani standing close together, surrounded by the other gopis who served them. So when he saw the deity of Krishna and Radha Rani, he said, "Oh, God has girlfriends too?" So I said, yes, if human beings can have girlfriends, why can't God have a girlfriend? And Srila Prabhupada in the Krishna book begins like that, and he says, people ask, who is this blue boy and who is this girl standing next to him? And then he goes on to explain who Krishna is and who Radha is. So in any case, these are some extraordinary features about God in his ultimate sweet manifestation, in his original form. And you might have noticed a very common feature in all the pictures of Krishna that I showed you so far. In each of them, Krishna is playing the flute. Yes, you might ask, well, why the flute? Why not, let's say a violin or something? Well, that's his pastime. He likes that. He's an expert in playing any instrument. But nevertheless, he chooses to play the flute. And let's talk a bit about Krishna's blue complexion. Since we're talking about the blue musician, how come Krishna has a complexion that is blue, that is so unusual? We've never seen anything like this except in the movies of late. So there is really no philosophical answer. Although many people attempt an answer, and they say, well, because the blue is the color of the sky, or blue is the color of the spiritual world, or blue is perhaps, or because Krishna, the word in Sanskrit means dark, so is blue, black kind of a complexion. But actually the answer is that there is no answer. It's just Krishna's choice. That's the way he prefers to be. That's the meaning of individuality. Just like each of us wants to present ourselves to the world in a certain way. And that's our individual choice. We have our individual preference to maybe tie our hair in a certain way, to wear a certain kind of dress, or to speak in a certain way. That's what individuality is all about. And bhakti doesn't in any way compromise one's individuality. Rather, it nourishes that and brings it to perfection. So Krishna is also the supreme individual. He chooses to have a blue complexion of this sort. But it must also be pointed out that because he is complete, he is perfect and all-powerful, he is not constrained to be only blue. If he likes, he can change his complexion. He can assume other forms that have other colors, and indeed that is the case. We have, for example, the avatar or the incarnation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is golden in color. We also have another incarnation in the boar form, Varaha, who is perhaps red in color. There are incarnations that are white, those that are red, those that are darkish blue like Krishna, those that are yellow or golden. So Krishna can manifest any form that he likes in any color. But this is the original form and complexion of Krishna. And this is what he chooses. So unfortunately or fortunately, there is no philosophical answer to this. Just like when you say, God is the ultimate source of everything. He has created everything. People ask the question, well, then who created God? The answer is no one created God. So God is. He is the ultimate full stop, where everything begins and everything ends. So similarly, there are some things that do not have a philosophical answer. Of course, we can't be whimsical about it. There has to be a philosophy behind our understanding of God. But beyond a certain point, we have to see that Krishna as a supreme person is free to present himself in any way that he likes. So now it also needs to be pointed out that Krishna's body is not like our body. Our body is made of substances that perish. This is a material body made of solids, liquids, gases, radiation, heat, and so on and so forth. And when we die, it either turns into ashes or dust. It's destroyed. But Krishna's body is completely spiritual. In Sanskrit, we call it Sat, Chit, and Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. So that's the way Krishna is. So his body cannot be destroyed. And the attributes of Krishna's body cannot be understood only by means of material analogies. Because we are accustomed to material analogies. Our experience of the world is what limits us. We don't have experience of anything beyond this world. So therefore, when we want to understand Krishna's complexion, then the Shastras, the scriptures, they give us the closest possible analogy that could exist in our realm of experience. For example, you talk of Krishna's complexion is like that of a freshly formed rain cloud. Well, it's the closest approximation in the material world, but it's not actually like that, because Krishna's complexion cannot be understood by material analogies alone, but it's a small indication to give us a hint. And in the Vedic theology or philosophy, there's a kind of a logic that's called Shakha Chandra Nyaya. Shakha means a branch, Chandra means the moon, and Nyaya means logic. The logic of the moon seen through the branches of a tree. When a mother wants to show her child the moon and the child doesn't know where to look, then the mother goes to a point where the moon can be seen between two branches, and she points out to the tree, which is more easily relatable to the child, and says, look between those two branches, there is the moon. But actually the moon is far away. The moon is not between the two branches. But nevertheless, it gives an indication. So similarly, whether it's Krishna's blue complexion, his form, his flute playing, his musical skills and so on, are completely incomprehensible to us limited living entities. But nevertheless, our scriptures do give us some hints, and it is imperative for us to try to understand this knowledge so it deepens our appreciation and love for Krishna. And the full realization of all these things will happen only when we actually go to the spiritual world, when we attain the perfection of our life. And yes, coming now to Krishna's flute, which is, as I said, his favorite activity. The flute is his constant companion. And also, just like he chooses to have blue as his complexion, that's not something that we can choose. We are born with it, and we're stuck with it, unless, of course, nowadays someone goes for some kind of surgery or something. But Krishna can choose his complexion, and similarly, he chooses his preferred musical instrument as the flute, rather than, let's say, the drums or the violin or anything else. So Krishna plays the flute all the time, and it's mesmerizing. The way Krishna plays the flute enchants and captivates the entire creation, the material and the spiritual world. The kinds of melodies he plays, the skill that he displays when he plays his flute are absolutely out of this world, beyond this world. The likes of which we can never possibly see, even in the most gifted musician. It's just not possible to even come close to Krishna's expertise in music, and specifically when it comes to playing the flute. So Krishna has his flute. He has a variety of flutes, actually, many different types of flutes, just like a musician has a variety of instruments. A violinist would have a couple of violins, and the musician may choose a particular violin for a particular occasion. So similarly, Krishna has multiple flutes. And the effects of Krishna's flute on anyone and everyone who hears this divine transcendental sound is one of complete delight and rapture. We also have experience in hearing delightful music, even though that music may be worldly music. But if there's something that is really melodious and sweet, we become very enchanted. So just imagine when Krishna, the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Musician, plays the flute, what kind of impact it would have on the minds of the people who are fortunate enough to listen to it. The kind of raptures that the listeners of the flute get into is quite indescribable. It's bewitching, it's completely intoxicating. Even ordinary music has some kind of an effect like that. But this is just a glimmer or a glimpse of what Krishna's flute playing can do to those who hear. He transports them into an ocean of spiritual bliss. Just that playing of the flute. And in particular, Krishna's flute playing finds its perfection, its acme, its zenith in Vrindavan, when he's grazing the cows or when he's with the gopis and so on. So all the residents of Vrindavan just love Krishna when he plays the flute. They become irresistibly attracted to him. So let's consider some of the results of Krishna's playing the flute on different categories of entities. First of all, let's consider the role of Krishna's flute playing in the creation of this whole universe. We hear from the Vedic scriptures that Brahma is the creator of the universe, but he is the secondary creator, not the primary creator. The primary creator is, of course, Krishna. But Krishna doesn't actually do it himself. He delegates this task. He outsources it to his representatives. And in each universe, and yes, we do have many universes. Modern physics is speaking about multiverses and so on. It's an idea perhaps whose time has come, but it's been there in the Vedic scriptures for a long time. And each universe has a Brahma. You can see Brahma there on the top of a lotus flower. He has 4 heads, at least our Brahma does. And Krishna's flute playing is the origin of all sound. Actually, sound is the basis of creation of the entire cosmos. And we've also heard the phrase, in the beginning was the word. Yes, the word is sound. And that original sound is Krishna's flute. And as Krishna plays the flute, he also has to ensure that his dear representatives like Brahma are suitably empowered to discharge the functions that they are meant to. So Krishna's flute playing has an enormous impact on Brahma's consciousness. The sound of Krishna's flute enters into his ears as the famous Gayatri mantra. We won't talk much about this Gayatri mantra. Suffice it to say that it's a very famous mantra that is chanted. Those familiar with the Vedic culture will surely have heard of it. And then it comes out from Brahma's mouth as the Vedas. Veda refers to the original source of knowledge, the fountainhead of knowledge. And it all comes from Krishna, who then distributes it via his flute through these great personalities like Brahma. So on the right side of the slide, you see Brahma being the source of a variety of skills and branches of knowledge that we see within this universe. Then let's see the kind of effects that Krishna's flute has on the animals of Vrindavan. You see, in Vrindavan, even the animals are devotees. The trees are devotees. All are conscious. The air, the water, the grass, the birds, all are devotees of Krishna. And when Krishna plays the flute, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, the deer becomes so mesmerized. They approach Krishna as if they're intoxicated, and they look at him very affectionately. Actually, deer are very attracted to melodious music, and that is incidentally how many cruel hunters trap deer. They play melodious music, and the deer comes nearby and stands there transfixed, and as if in some kind of a trance, being allured by that enchanting music. And then the hunter, the cruel hunter, then catches the deer and does whatever he has to do with it. So, but Krishna is the all-kind, all-loving personality. So the deer just come and stand next to him hearing his flute song, and they become mesmerized. The cows, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, when they hear Krishna's flute, they also get transported into ecstasy. They experience such happiness. Their ears are upraised, and they try to expand their ears so that they can, as if they're trying to drink in the nectar of Krishna's flute song through their ears. And the calves who have been suckling their mothers, and they have their mouths full of milk, mother's milk, but they forget to swallow. When they hear Krishna's flute song, they just remain there, transfixed there. The birds, they rise into the top of the trees to see Krishna, and then with their eyes closed, they simply listen to that sound, not being attracted to any other sound. It appears, the Srimad Bhagavatam says, that these birds are like great sages who are sitting in rapt meditation. And then the peacocks, when they hear Krishna's flute song, they just go mad and they dance. I don't know how many of you are familiar with peacocks. I don't know if you have them in America, but in India, in many places, we have peacocks. And they're well known for their plumes, and they're well known for their beauty. They're well known also for their dancing skills. They dance very attractively. So some of our scriptures talk of a wonderful pastime when the peacocks approach Krishna and they tell him that, Krishna, please play the flute so that we can dance in accompaniment to your flute song. And they surround him in a circle, and as Krishna plays the flute, the peacocks dance and dance to their heart's content. And a very beautiful scene unfolds. And then Krishna becomes so happy that he appreciates their dancing. And out of gratitude, the peacocks themselves offer their feathers to Krishna, because that's all they can offer. And then Krishna places that feather in his hair or in his turban. So that's another feature that you will note in every picture of Krishna or painting, that Krishna wears a peacock feather. So the peacock feather has been gifted by his dear devotee peacocks in the spiritual world in Vrindavan. Just like there is Brahma, there are also very powerful personalities who are given responsibilities to administer the universe. Just like in a country, you may have ministers who are in charge of agriculture, defense, and foreign affairs, and so on. So in the universe also, you have someone who looks after the sun, the moon, and so on and so forth. So these demigods, these higher personalities living in higher planets, they also become mesmerized. Even though they are great scholars and very eminent, powerful personalities, they become completely bewildered upon hearing Krishna's flute song, and they can simply bow their heads down and become grave. There are many, many such instances and passages in the scriptures. And what to speak of the cowherd boys who are accompanying Krishna all day long in the forest as he grazes the cows. They engage in many fun and games, in many pastimes of fun and games with him and Balaram, his older brother. And when Krishna plays the flute, the cowherd boys are also filled with indescribable bliss. And they also play their flutes and their bugles, and there's a happy orchestra that's formed. I mentioned earlier that Krishna loves cows, and therefore he's called Gopal, he's called Govinda, etc. One who is a protector and the tender of cows. So when Krishna, along with his friends, takes the cows out, they graze in the forest all day long, and when it's time to come back home, Krishna plays on his flute and calls each of the cows back. With the sound of his flute, each cow understands that Krishna is calling my name, and she rushes to him. So here is a nice traditional painting from Vrindavan and that part of the country, folk painting, which shows how the cows are rushing towards Krishna as he calls them. Come on, it's time to go home now. You've been grazing all day in the forest, and now it's time to return. So Krishna calls them and they all come. And it's interesting that he calls them with his flute. Now, of course, in this day and age, where is one going to hear the sound of Krishna's flute? That's not possible for us. But it's interesting for us to know that the greatest effect that Krishna's flute has amongst all categories of entities is on the cowherd maidens, the cowherd girls of Vrindavan called the gopis. It is like nothing else. when the gopis hear the sound of Krishna's flute from a distance, they leave everything. They leave their homes, they leave their families, they leave everything, and they're not even concerned about their physical safety. They just rush into the forest to be with Krishna as he's playing his flute. So this is the effect that Krishna's flute has on the gopis and others. That, of course, is a subject in itself. So now the question arises, what do? We can't have the good fortune of hearing Krishna's flute. Well, yes and no. We may not hear Krishna's flute as a flute, but that same flute song has manifested itself in the form of the chanting of the holy names. So that blue musician, Krishna, has come in a golden form as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about 500 years ago in India, in Bengal. And he has propagated or inaugurated the congregational chanting of the holy names of Lord Krishna as a means to attain love for Krishna. So this is at the heart of the process of bhakti, the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. So therefore, by chanting the names of Krishna, as we see here in the picture, the modern day devotees of Krishna can also actually associate with Krishna's flute song, because there is no difference between the chanting of the names of Krishna and Krishna's flute song. And of course, it would be very befitting for us to make a grateful mention of Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, who is arguably the chief propagator of the Sankirtan movement worldwide. And we owe our heartfelt thanks to him. If it weren't for him, perhaps we would not be here today at this session. Thanks to what he has inaugurated in the modern day world, the path of bhakti has become accessible and easily available to everybody. So thank you all very much. I'll stop here and we'll have some comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. We're sending our love, gratitude, appreciation over to you. Oh my goodness. That was such a beautiful presentation. I could listen to you talk all day. I've got to find your audio files and just relish this. It was so helpful the way that you went through that. And I've got a question. I see we've got another question ready. I guess what's on my mind, just the way that you presented this so nicely. So how does your understanding of Krishna, of God, understanding what you just explained, how does that inform your life? Because how do you then live your life? How do you make decisions? How do you decide how to act or think or how to serve? Just helping to bridge that gap a little bit, because it was just so helpful the way you presented that. And now I'm thinking going forward, for your own personal experience, how does it inform your life?
We all take decisions every day in our life. Many, many decisions every day, from small decisions and perhaps sometimes some big decisions. I think the importance of connecting everything to Krishna is something that we should never neglect, because ultimately attaining love for him, realizing him, is the goal of life. So all our decisions should be taken keeping in mind the impact that they would have on our Krishna consciousness in the short term, medium term, and perhaps the long term. So whether it's a question of eating more than a certain amount, or whether it's a question of taking some very major decision in life, everything should be seen in the context of how it is going to affect my spiritual consciousness. How will it increase or decrease my love for Krishna? Will it take me further away from Krishna or bring me closer to him? So that should be the determining criterion in the matter of decision making for a sadhaka or a practitioner who's very serious about making spiritual progress.
Wow. I love that. I wish I was able to ask that question before I made every decision and said everything. That's very inspiring and something to look forward to. But we got another question. Let's get Sarah and George on the line here. Kent, UK, you guys have not missed a session this whole conference.
I know, we're still going. Here we are. Thank you for that lecture, Prabhu. That was fantastic. I've got hopefully an interesting question for you. I know that it's talked about that you can relate to Krishna as a child or as a friend, or with the gopis with Arjuna. Which one resonates with you? For me, I kind of relate to the Krishna Arjuna dynamic. For me, I see him as a mentor, but I was just wondering how you saw him and how you related to him,
and also how perhaps that's impacted your life.
Well, I made a brief mention of individuality. Individuality is eternal. It cannot be destroyed. We cannot merge into some impersonal light and extinguish our individuality. That's not possible. And therefore, we must try to tap the individuality to move in a direction that fulfills every yearning of the heart in relation to Krishna. So different individuals will do that in different ways. Different strokes for different folks. So therefore, someone may like to love Krishna in one way, someone may like to love Krishna in another way, and all of these are bona fide, so long as it's not something that goes beyond the authorized teachings from the Vedic scriptures. One cannot whimsically or frivolously assume a certain relationship with Krishna. That would be premature. Rather, one should follow the process of Bhakti Yoga as described by the great teachers of Bhakti Yoga and systematically, assiduously cultivate our relationship with Krishna. And when that relationship reaches a certain level of maturity, then everything will be revealed. We are perhaps not at that stage in life where we can figure out exactly what our relationship with Krishna is, or even what it should be, or even what we would like it to be. Let me give a simple example. When you ask a 6-year-old, what would you want to be? He says, I want to be an astronaut. You ask the child after 2 years, what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor. Another 2 years later, no, I want to be a sports star, So they've not yet matured enough to understand what they really want to do in their life. They're too young. So similarly, most of us would perhaps be too young in our spiritual journey to actually realize our specific relationship with Krishna, or even perhaps to know what we would like to be in relation to Krishna. What kind of a relationship or rasa would we like to have? So therefore, the answer is to simply follow the process. And as we follow the process, automatically Krishna very kindly from within, over a period of time, will continue to inspire us in certain ways, give us realizations, give us an understanding, and push us in a certain direction as time goes by. And also, it's important to note that we should always take advice from those who are spiritually knowledgeable, who can guide us. Okay?
That's why we're here. Thank you for that answer. That was great.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. I just want to say a fun little story. This learning, because I know there's some on the call that also wouldn't know this yet, but just a couple days ago, we have a little mentorship group with Sarah and George and some in our community. And you were asking about, sometimes we refer to devotees as Das and sometimes as Prabhu. So we went through that. We identify as Das, as a servant, but we honor others as Prabhu. And I know you took that coaching on so quickly and shared it here. And actually, the final piece I forgot to share when we're speaking to a sannyas, someone who's dedicated their life, it's actually Maharaj is the term. So now we got Das, Prabhu, and Maharaj. But Maharaj, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. But let's send our love, gratitude to Sarah and George. Beautiful questions as always. And Maharaj, thank you so much for your time. We're going to share a link underneath the video with ways to stay in touch with you on Instagram, your website. So grateful for your association. Would you leave us with some parting words as we move forward on this bhakti path, as we absorb this information and go off into the world? What would you leave us with?
The best thing I can do is to leave you with the best mantra of all. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And that's our flute song. And the blue musician will perform his wonders and miracles from within our heart. We just continue to recite devotionally this mantra.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Maharaj. So grateful for you to be here. Thank you all for being here, for tuning in from all around the world. Wishing you an amazing, beautiful rest of the day. And we will see you all again very soon. Hare Krishna.
So thank you. Happy
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dhanu Pranam. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.